Hello, and welcome to this weather briefing for Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. My name is Joseph Patton, and I am a researcher with the Cooperative Institute for Satellite and Earth System Studies, or CISESS, at the University of Maryland. Tonight we'll be talking about severe thunderstorms which are possible across the Mid-South, as well as a significant snowstorm taking place across the Central Plains and Midwestern United States. Taking a look at the current weather hazards from Wednesday afternoon, there is a wide swath of winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings across the central and midwestern United States from Colorado into the Great Lakes region. There's also high wind warnings and red flag warnings for New Mexico and Texas, and even stretching into Oklahoma, as some dry and gusty winds are leading to conditions which would be bad for burning in that area. And then there's also the threat of severe weather into this evening for portions of the southeast United States from Texas into Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee. So a fairly active weather day across much of the United States. Winter storm watches are also in effect for the Great Lakes region, as that storm will continue to push into that region, causing some heavy snowfall that's expected, especially with some additional support from the Great Lakes themselves. Taking a look at the upper level winds which are supporting this unsettled weather pattern, there is a strong jet streak of upper level winds over 100 knots, stretching from the southwestern United States into the central and eastern United States. And that jet streak is really sort of split into two halves, where you've got one trough axis over the western United States that's bringing with it its own local maxima of strong winds, and then another trough over the eastern United States, which also has its own locally strong jet streak here. So what you end up getting is sort of two different jet streak dynamics going on at play here, and generally what's favorable for ascent leading to upward motion and thunderstorms tends to coalesce in either the left exit, so coming out of the jet on the left side, or the right entrance, so going going into the jet on the right side. So either this left exit region where you're coming out of the jet on the left side, or this right entrance region where you're coming into the jet on the right side. And these two are really coalescing for these two separate jet streaks right over the central United States. So we've got those upper level winds leading to strong wind shear, and these left exit and right entrance regions are also overlapping in a way that could lead to some locally enhanced severe weather for that particular area. In addition, this is also promoting the conditions which are leading to the heavy snow and blizzard conditions across the central plains and the Midwest. As the surface low which develops, heavy snow tends to form on that northwest side of that developing surface low. So these areas to the northwest of that developing surface low, aided by these upper level winds, those are the areas which are particularly going to see the impacts of winter precip and heavy snow as we get later on into this week. There are four basic ingredients that are generally necessary in order to produce severe thunderstorms. Those ingredients are shear, so winds changing direction or magnitude with height; lift, so some sort of front, like a cold front or a warm front or a dry line, some sort of boundary to help initiate those storms, so give them their first push upward; instability, so that's a measure of how much the storms want to continue to propagate in whatever environment that they're placed in, based on the thermodynamics of the atmosphere. And then also the moisture level of the atmosphere, so how much water vapor is there available to form clouds, and how much of that is accessible to the thunderstorm themselves. So how does that look from when we look at our event coming up in the Mid-South? Well, here's a special sounding from 18Z, so about midday today, near Jackson, Mississippi. And this sounding is basically a vertical profile of our atmosphere, the temperature and pressure and dew point. And those are things that are gathered from a group of instruments attached to a weather balloon. And that weather balloon was launched from central Mississippi, showing that there are some thermodynamic aspects to our atmosphere which are conducive to severe weather. So let's break this down in terms of our shear, lift, instability, and moisture, or SLIM. So starting with the S term, shear, we can see that there's 60 knots of surface to 6 kilometer shear. That value is supported by the strong jet streak of upper level winds that we saw earlier in this presentation. As well, we can see that there is a source of lift. There's a cold front near the ground where we've got a shift in winds that's occurring not far above the surface. And then also we have the upper level supporting parameters of the upper level winds in the left exit and the right entrance region, leading to support for lift coming from the upper levels as well. For instability, we can measure instability in the atmosphere by looking at a certain thermodynamic variable called convective available potential energy, or CAPE. And while the CAPE values from this particular thermodynamic profile of the atmosphere above or around 700 joules per kilogram, they're not particularly eye-popping. Sometimes on the really strong thunderstorm days, you'll see CAPE well into the several thousand joules per kilogram, but we do see that there is some sizable D-CAPE, or downdraft CAPE, and that CAPE is really a measure of, once those thunderstorms form, what kind of available energy could there be in order to lead to cold downdrafts as the thunderstorms are falling apart, which could lead to some strong gusty winds at the surface, even though the thunderstorms themselves might not support the dynamics leading to such strong winds. So the D-CAPE values above 400 joules per kilogram, they could indicate that there could be some decaying storms leading to gusty winds associated with this system moving through the Mid-South. And then finally, moisture. That's really the one variable that we don't have to worry about for this particular event. The surface dew point temperatures are in the mid-60s, which is particularly high for this time of year in January, and then also our lifted condensation level, which is the level at which clouds will start to form once the updraft begins within the thunderstorm, as well as the level of free convection, which is the point at which the thunderstorm will continue to have upward mobility of those buoyant parcels within its updraft, even without an initial source of lift. Those two values are relatively close to the ground at less than 500 meters above the surface, and that indicates that it won't take much effort thermodynamically for these storms to form clouds and continue to propagate, especially with the support from the upper levels and the low-level systems. So if we look at a model solution or a model guess for how that might pan out going into this evening, this is a radar reflectivity composite animation from the high resolution rapid refresh, or HRR model, and we can see that there is a line of strong-ish to severe-ish thunderstorms that moves through that area encompassing Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama. And some of these storms may lead to severe weather, but they're fairly linear in nature, which is going to limit just how strong these storms could get. And as we saw, the thermodynamics are good but not great. So this is basically all setting up to be an event which could quite possibly lead to some severe thunderstorms, but it's not going to be a widespread slam dunk event. And so those who are in the path of dangerous weather need to stay tuned in case the necessary information changes as we get closer to the event. Shifting gears to the north cold side of this same system, we can see that there are reports of heavy snow. Nearly a foot of snow has already fallen in western Nebraska, including North Platte, Nebraska. And then there's also going to be expected freezing rain and ice accumulations, possibly leading to power outages throughout central and southern Nebraska. So this is just the beginning of this snowstorm, which is going to continue to impact regions from Nebraska all the way into the Chicago Great Lakes region, bringing heavy snow and potentially some power outages from freezing rain as well. So winter weather and severe weather kind of go hand in hand with these systems coming through in the winter time, and it's definitely something to pay attention to as we get into later this week. Looking at some medium range model guidance for this week in particular, the Global Forecast System, or GFS model, is showing both the surface cyclone, which is leading to the severe weather and winter weather today, as well as a possibly developing another surface cyclone later this week and into this weekend and early next week that could bring some additional rain. So that secondary system that's expected to bring additional precipitation is going to be focused more on the deep south, so it's probably going to bring some locally heavy rainfall to that area. But the mid-latitude cyclone that's coming through now is a bit further north, and it's bringing that mixture of snow on the north side and then some severe weather on the south side, which we're seeing with that severe event that we've been talking about. Looking at the 3 to 7 day hazards outlook for the United States from the Weather Prediction Center, they're highlighting two main threats. The first one being heavy rain expected across the southeast United States from that surface disturbance that we saw on the medium range GFS model guidance, as well as regions of heavy snow expected for portions of the Intermountain West. That's going to be associated with some troughing in that area as well. But overall, it looks to be a relatively quiet period of weather coming up for much of the central and northeastern United States as we get into later this week. And finally, looking at the 8 to 14 day outlook for next week, we can see that cold weather is expected across the western and central United States, with above normal temperatures in the extreme southeast United States, including the Florida Panhandle, as well as slightly above normal temperatures in the Alaskan region. And we can also expect to see slightly above normal chances for precipitation for most of the Intermountain West, the Alaskan region, and the southeast and eastern United States. So we could see some increased chances for precipitation, and then definitely the most likely signal is going to be cold weather in the western United States next week. So some things to pay attention to. As always, stay tuned to your local National Weather Service for the most up-to-date information. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.